Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I'm coming at you with another Wargaming and Miniature Painting 101 video. And this is video number 2. This is preparation for assembly. This is not actually the assembly. Some people would put the assembly and the preparation for assembly all in the same video. I wanted to break this down because it is important to prepare for your inevitable assembly before you get started, and so I wanted to hit up on that topic as well. And what I'm trying to do is in this series is show you how to, from start to finish, from taking it out of the package all the way to the end of painting it, basing it. I'm going to go ahead and use the Black Powder Warlord Games French Line Infantry as the basis of this tutorial. Now, the steps that I'm about to give you throughout the tutorials can be applied to any model building, any painting. So you're going to be able to do metal, you're going to be able to do plastic, resin, it doesn't matter. Plus, it can be any genre. It could be sci-fi, the ancients, Napoleonic, World War II, bolt action, whatever. So these techniques will apply to all. You'll just have to adjust accordingly. Okay, the first thing I want you to know is I got all my materials out that I'm going to need to do the assembly. One of the primary things you need are the figures. Okay, so you need your figures. You've taken your figures, you've already done the washing process. That's the process on step 1, where you go through and wash off all of the mold release. You let the metal, plastic, or resin dry so it's not wet. You want to gather your tools, so you want to make sure you've got your glues. You want to make, okay, now first of all, this is not the glue I'm using. Okay, this is a super glue. There are a lot of glues out there that you can use, like PVA, rubber cement. What's that other glue? There's the E6000. There's hundreds of glues out there that you can use. The most popular ones you'll see are the super glues, right? Are the most popular glue that you will see in model building. You'll be able to go buy a bottle of Zap-A-Gap or something like that at your local hobby store or railroad store. I got this online at Hobby Link. Okay, that's where I got these. These I bought direct from Warlord. This I got at Hobby Lobby, a local game store. These I bought when I was in Germany. You can find these. You can look for these and you can find these. Now I'm going to assemble the models using the E6000. As you can see, this thing's already been used quite a bit. E6000 is my preferred model building glue. I've been model building since the 70s, and I've gone through all different types of glues, and I've stumbled upon the E6000 just a few years ago, and it is the bomb. I like it to death. Okay, now you'll want your hobby knife. You'll also want a sprue cutter if you're going to be working with plastic model sprues, and then you'll also want a box that you can put pieces in and you won't get them lost. You'll want to work on some kind of table that's not going to damage the table underneath. Now you can use cardboard, you can use newspaper, you can use plastic sheeting, you can use even a cutting board. I've got a cutting board I use sometimes. Yeah, just put something underneath to protect the table you're working on. Now these books, what I do is I get reference material from, if you're doing World War II, you want to have World War II reference material of the types of soldiers you're putting together. If you're doing Romans, you want to have some kind of reference material of how the Romans actually looked, what did their uniform colors look like, how did they wear their uniforms. This is all part of preparation. So you want to prepare, and then when you go to your models, luckily, like Warlord has flags that I can cut out. But if you don't have flags, you want to make sure you get flags for your assembly. this little French line infantry 1807 to 1810 uniform concept. They give you a little history, also a couple of painting suggestions, ideas. They even say that you can use these soldiers as an alternative, like those are the Swiss, right? So you can actually do kind of whatever you want to do. So basically just use whatever reference materials you have. I'm going to set that off to the side. All right. Right now we are preparing to, we're in the preparation of assembly. Okay. So now these should be just basically 5 of the same sprues, right? Each sprue has 4 guys on it. Basically each sprue is going to be a base. So I'm going to put these on 6 bases, these 5, and then that group right there, that's the command stand, that's going to go on a base as well. Okay, when I'm looking, part of your preparation is deciding. So you got to go through your models and you got to decide like what heads you're going to use, you know, how are they going to be glued together and things like that. You have to make these decisions before you start cutting everything out, because you can cut everything out if you want. It's just a waste. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I prepare my metal models. Next thing I need to let you know is I switch glasses. I've got a higher power glasses that I wear when I'm doing my modeling and my painting, because it actually kind of acts as a magnifying glass. Alright, so now I'm going to be working right here. I'm going to take this model here. Now this is how I prepare. When looking at the model, you can see that there's a little bit of flash sticking out right there. You're going to see on the body, you got to examine your body. You can see that the sword, it's not shaped the way I want it to. Along the top edge of his arm and chest and arm, there is some mold, what do you call it, flash. So what I'm going to go do is I'm going to use my X-Acto knife. Now what I do is I usually put my thumb close to the blade, okay, because what I'm doing is I'm pulling, I pull with my fingers, right, and I use my thumb to control the model. So you go here and you got to be careful not to cut yourself, obviously, but I can control this in my thumb where I'm not cutting myself. Okay, now I take the back side of the blade and I drag this across the model, okay, and right around where it's, okay, let me cut into that a little bit because it's really thick, and then I take it and I just drag it. You see what I'm doing? I'm pulling with my fingers. That arm looks good. I used my finger, I grabbed the entire blade and kind of used my thumb and forefinger to kind of shape it into the sword that I want it to be, into the shape that I wanted the sword to be. Okay, so let me adjust this zoom here. Yeah, this is a new web camera actually. This is the 922, so hopefully the autofocus works a lot better and it doesn't make all kinds of noise like the last one did. There we go. Oh, I was almost there. So you can see along the top of this arm that I just scraped off all of the flash. Okay. And that's just one figure. So let's take another figure that's got some excessive wackiness to it. Okay, looking at this model, you should be able to see the sword is like seriously bent. and that he's holding something in his left hand as well, that's all not supposed to be there, right? Because he's not actually carrying anything in his left hand. It's just a mold line that allowed him, you know, it was just extra in the mold process, basically. Again, I'm drawing the blade towards my thumb. I know some people might say, but Mr. Everything, you should always cut away from your body. That's true, but that's not how I do it. I get more control when I'm pushing against the model with my thumb and pulling with my fingers on the handle of the blade. Okay, so now that's a pretty excessive bend on the sword, so what I'm going to try to do is hold the entire sword and kind of, instead of just grabbing it and bending it because it'll break, you want to kind of give it, like what I'm doing is I'm pressing it in towards the blade as I'm pulling it up. I don't want to just go, because metal this thin will just break if you do that. Right? You don't want your model that you spent good money on breaking. Now I have to roll the blade because the blade looks like it's doing one of these numbers. Okay, so we're making progress. Now let's give it a little bit of a curve. Not much. Just a hair of a curve. Whoops. Just a hair of a curve. There we go. There, that looks a lot better. Now we're going to continue on with removing any of the flash around the edges. Give me a second. I'm not really seeing much flash. Well, maybe along the back side of his arm, maybe. Does this have that chest line? It doesn't. This one's actually a really good model. All right, so ready to go. Okay, so in this box set, it gives you two choices for the ribbons. One has a spear tip, and the other one has an eagle. Well, of course, I'm going to use the one with the eagle on it. The spear tips usually are guidons, and the eagle is usually the flag. So then I'm going through and just removing the flash off of the eagle and all the ribbons. Looking good. All right, so these guys are finished, and that's why I have a box. Box is to stash stuff that I'm not working with just right now. Here's the flagpole. And now once I get these two bodies done, I'll be right back. All right, guys, the standard bearer here has a closed fist and a little shoulder strap for the standard, right? So the standard is supposed to rest in that little pocket and then go through his hand, but his hand is closed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pin vise and I'm going to drill a hole down through his hand. Let's go ahead and make that happen. And then it'll look like he's actually holding the standard in his hot little hands. Because I'm not gluing anything together, I'm not assembling anything, I don't consider this part of assembly. I consider this part of preparing your models for assembly. Should be coming through the hand here any second now. You got to be careful not to, you know, go left or right and ruin the fingers. Oh, I'm through. And once I get it assembled, it's going to look a lot like that. All right. One of the next steps is to choose the right heads for those 4 commanders, right? One of them is the colonel, one of them is the standard bearer, one of them is the drummer, and the 4th guy should be the aide. Now the aide usually is carrying a brace of pistols, so I'm going to cut these brace of pistols off of the sprue. There's one pistol in a holster, basically. There we go. And here's the second pistol in a holster. And these are worn on the chest of the aide, and his duty is to protect the standard bearer. Alright, and now I'm using the 2 shakos, or however you want to pronounce it, for the standard bearer and the drummer. There is a shako with the tall plume. I'm not using that. That would be used in like a Voltigeur light grenadier unit. I'm also not going to use the guy without his hat on because, hey. Okay, so there's not a whole lot of thinking when it comes to these sprues, when it comes to the bodies. There's 4 bodies with arms and rifles already, they're not rifles, they're muskets, already built. Basically, all I'm going to do is cut these out. So what we do is, when it comes to plastic, I use my sprue cutters. Now you can get sprue cutters at any hardware store or online modeling store or anything like that. Sprue cutters have a flat side that go against the subject matter, and then they have a couple of beveled edges to make it sharp, and that'll go against or away from the subject. So like I lay the flat up against the bottom of the base, and I trim, and I lay the flat against his neck, and I trim, and boom, done. Okay. Okay, let me cut all these out and I'll be right back. Alright, so I got all those cut out. Now, the sprue cutters work they work great in cutting and leaving very little flash, like specifically like on the bases and stuff like that. But what I do need to do is, just to be sure, because it's never perfect, just drag it across there and just trim it off a little bit so that these guys can stand. Do that with all of them. Alright, once I get that done, I'll be right back. Alright, so I got the bottoms of these guys cut. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go individually and see if, like this one on his neck, it needs to be done a little bit of trimming, you know, so that his heads will be able to lay on there. Yep, got to prepare the body. Is there really any flash? Not really. Just that neck where it met with the sprue. I'm going to throw that guy in there. Do it again. Look, study, don't see anything. Moving on. Alright, so let me do that on all these, and I'll be right back. Alright, so now that I got the bodies out of the way, what we're going to do is basically do the same thing on their backpacks. Now they give you 5 backpacks for 4 guys, right? So basically, now's your opportunity to go through and pick and choose which backpacks you're going to use. Some of them have mugs, some, and this is where you decide what you're going to use. This guy's got a pot on his back. I'm going to go ahead and use that one for sure. When I get all these cut off, I'll be right back. Alright, so now I got these cut out, and what we're going to do is now there's only 2 real spots where the sprue might have left a little bit of something, so I'm just going to trim the sides of these backpacks, because they all look pretty good when it comes to mold lines and things like that. I don't think there's really anything on them. Once I get all these done, I'll be right back. Alright, the next step is to get some heads for the bodies. Now they give you like 8 heads for 4 bodies. One of the reasons why is depending on the type of unit you're going to use. So what you have to do is make a decision. How do you want to do this? You have some bearskin caps for like grenadiers. You also have plumes, the tall plumes for your grenadiers or your voltigeurs as well. And then you got your shakos, some with ribbons on the sides, some with leather covers. Yeah, so you just have to kind of decide like how you want to do it. Now what I think I'm going to do is I'm not going to use the bearskin caps. I'm actually, even for my grenadiers, I'm just going to paint the plumes red like they should. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the 2 shakos with plumes, and it really doesn't matter which one's which, but I'm going to use one for the grenadiers and one for the voltigear. I am going to use grenadier and voltigear 4 figures on a stand. One stand is going to be voltigears, one stand is going to be grenadiers. Okay, so I got my 2 stands, one voltigear, one grenadier, in my leadership stand. Now what I'm going to do is cut out the shakos. Looks like the 2 in the middle are the ones that I like. They have the pom-poms and they don't have a tassel. Okay, let's see how many of those I've got. Should have 10 of them. Okay, we got the pom-poms. It looks like there is exactly 10 of them, and I need these on 3 bases, so maybe I use 3 on each base, maybe not this 10th one, and then I just drop a different, maybe one with a tassel. Alright, so I got a tassel and 3 without tassels on each base. Each base is probably going to have a different color to represent a different company in the battalion. So like purple and yellow and pink or whatever, blue I think is one of the colors of the pom-poms to represent their company. Okay, so we're going to put those heads in there. Alright, so I'm pretty much finished preparing them to be assembled. I have a few extra pieces like 3, 10. There's a bunch of heads I've got left, a couple of backpacks. Yeah, I've got the standard plume, a metallic head as well. So I'm just going to put these in the box. Alright, so these guys are ready for assembly, and that's where I'm going to call it on this video, because I'm getting ready to start putting all these together, and once I do, I want to make that the next video. I'll see you then.